Okay, let's follow up on what's going on with the Ukraine story. As I told you yesterday, every couple of hours, we get some additional confirmation or admission that the entire Donald Trump extortion of the Ukrainian president by withholding hundreds of millions of dollars in aid under the demand that Ukraine smear Joe Biden is coming out as reported from the beginning exactly. Every few hours, we learn another 5% of the story is true. Now, you might remember yesterday, we learned that Donald Trump indeed withheld the aid. And in fact, we found out that the decision was made just a few days before Donald Trump's July 2019 phone call with the Ukrainian president. But you might also recall that Donald Trump explained the reason he didn't want to give Ukraine the money was because he didn't want to give money to a corrupt country like he supposedly discussed on the phone with the Ukrainian president. That was explanation number one. Donald Trump has now come up with a completely different explanation, which I guess we can call explanation number two, which is that the reason he withheld the aid from Ukraine is he was mad at the European Union for not having contributed more money to Ukraine, which is not even remotely believable. Donald Trump spoke to reporters before heading to meetings at the United Nations in New York City, which were an entirely separate gong show that I will talk about with you a little bit later on today. And Donald Trump said, yeah, I did withhold the financial aid from Ukraine, but it was because he wants other countries in Europe to be giving more money to Ukraine, not, of course, because he was trying to strong arm Ukraine into investigating and subsequently smearing Joe Biden. Let's take a look at the video. Also note that Donald Trump says in the same sentence that he gave them the money, but that he would withhold it again, which is an implicit confirmation that he did withhold it, which he previously admitted to, but now denies, and then immediately self-contradicts. If my explanation is confusing, if that summary is confusing, then you are correctly understanding it. It is incredibly confusing. Take a look at this.
So here's the story, very simply. We're watching Venezuela very closely. As far as withholding funds, those funds were paid. They were fully paid. But my complaint has always been, and I'd withhold again, and I'll continue to withhold until such time as Europe and other nations contribute to Ukraine, because they're not doing it. Just the United States, we're putting up the bulk of the money. And I'm asking, why is that? And I want Europe, and it's always been this, and everybody knows it, every single reporter knows it, everybody in the administration knows that what I want, and I insist on it, is that Europe has to put up money for Ukraine also. Why is it only the United States putting up the money?
So listen, Trump's definitely panicking here. But this is also a strategy, sometimes known as the Gish Gallop, sometimes known as the fire hose of falsehood. And Rudy Giuliani has been a big player in Donald Trump employing this strategy. You say something different every day. Rudy is a pro at it. Trump is pretty good at it. You say one thing, and then the next day you say the opposite. And what you're counting on is people ultimately just being too damn exhausted or confused to really figure it out, combined with bamboozling your own supporters into believing that you at some point explained it, even though they're all contradictory explanations. And unfortunately, it often works. They're actually doing something right here, which is that while everyone who cares about the facts is busy trying to figure out what happened, Trump and Rudy and everybody else are trying to get ahead of it and shaping the narrative, just like the William Barr propaganda letter was able to get out ahead of the Mueller report and obfuscate and completely mislead with Barr's summary of Mueller's report. Then they use that bogus propaganda letter as the reference document that all the Trumpists point to and say, we got the real story. We got it in William Barr's letter, even though that letter was completely divorced from the reality of what the Mueller report said. Now, as I mentioned to you yesterday, the real story here is the suppression of the whistleblower report. And that has gone by the wayside. And the discussion is increasingly shaped by Donald Trump about the reasons why he withheld the aid and the content of that July 2019 phone call with the Ukrainian president. What we really need is the whistleblower complaint and the whistleblower to testify under oath, not some absurd phone call transcript that Donald Trump now says he is going to put out. And that is exactly what we want to talk about next. Let's dig into the transcript.